Hello everyone, welcome back or to my channel. If you happen to be new here, that felt very formal, but it just kind of came out of my mouth because I find intros, sit down videos awkward. Even after 6 years of doing YouTube as my job. We are talking books today. I feel like I haven't done a book video in ages, and I counted since my last one. I've read 20 books. I'm gonna go through them. This is like from oldest all the way to newest. Firstly, yeah, we're starting off with this book of all books, which is Magnolia Parks Into the Dark by Jayne Hastings. This book, I'm not much of a crier in books. I get emotional books, but I was sobbing in chapter 2. BJ's first chapter is chapter 2. Crying. I have so many folded down pages, underlines, like this. Jess's writing is just art to me. It's just like poetry. I feel like she does the best job of just like describing feelings, and these people make mistakes. They're not perfect, but it almost makes you just love them and feel so much more connected like you would with real people in your life, because like they're real. I feel like because they're flawed, it makes them feel more real, and just like the inner dialogue that Jayne Hastings writes is crazy. Like I really feel like I know all of these characters so well. I feel like everyone has heard of this series, but if not, I'm kind of cold. I feel like this jumper is very, very fitting. Just wait for it. This is the cutest. I love it. Anyway, High Society London, toxic drama, toxic relationships, very much Gossip Girl energy. This book specifically is like an emotional roller coaster. As I said, not much of a crier in books, but this got me good. It did. This was really like almost like everything that we were waiting for with Magnolia and BJ and their relationship. Like this is the crux of it. I definitely look up some trigger warnings because I feel like there's definitely some things to do with grief and eating disorders and anxiety therapy, that kind of thing, but every single book in this series has been a 5-star without a doubt. I do want to do a reread at some point, but I'm just not sure if I can like put myself through it again anytime soon. Next we have Finley, Donovan is Killing It by El Cosimano. I'm pretty sure this is casted as like a cozy thriller or something, which basically, I could be a bit wrong on this, but basically means that it's like a thriller mystery, cozy mystery thriller kind of vibes. So it's kind of not scary per se. It's not like gory. You don't like hear the gory details, but it is a bit of like a thriller vibe. I don't know. This is a book club book, and general consensus from everyone was that we didn't really like it. This whole book felt like a fever dream. I also listened to a lot of the audiobook with this, which I think didn't help because I really didn't like the audiobook. But I know this is a very popular book, and I'm pretty sure the series is quite popular, so definitely like don't take my word for it, but I didn't love it. Finley is this single mum, and I think she just like annoyed me a little bit, but then like I said in Magnolia Parks, I do things that are annoying and it makes more real. This didn't feel like that for me. It just felt so frustrating, and like she kept just doing things and I was like, oh my gosh, like why are you doing this? She's basically an author and she's writing a book about covering a murder, I'm pretty sure, and then someone overhears her saying that she's like covering up this murder. So this girl gives her a card or like a note or something being like, I'll give you a certain amount of money if you kill my husband, because he's like really, he's not a good person. And that's kind of where it starts. I think I ended up giving it a 3. No, what did I give it? It says on Goodreads 3 stars, but I'm pretty sure it might have been like a 2.75 or a 2.5. 2.5 is what I've given it. So, oh my gosh, not like awful. Anyway, that's all. I'll stop talking about Finley. Next, I read Girl Aboard by Elle Kennedy, which is my first Elle Kennedy book. I really want to read more now because I really enjoyed this book. I feel like it wasn't like anything crazy, but I just had a good time. It's about a girl who moves to London. Like, so it says a 19-year-old Abby Blythe gets the opportunity to study abroad for a year in London. And I went, yep. So he's basically got this very overbearing dad, and he's like a famous singer, I'm pretty sure. She's just like really been overprotected her whole life, so she just wants to get out. She's doing like a flatmate, flat share kind of thing, and she gets to her new apartment and it's filled with boys. She thought that it was a bunch of girls, and her dad thinks it's a bunch of girls, and she knows that he would not be okay with her living with a bunch of boys, so she lies and just says that they're a bunch of girls. I gave it 4 stars. It's a bit of like, not a love triangle, but she's kind of got a couple love interests. It's kind of just like about a girl who's like finding herself, and she's studying, and there's also this like mystery element because she's doing this assignment of like trying to figure something out. I do feel like maybe it dragged a little bit, so it could have been a bit shorter, but I feel like a 4 star, it sums it up. Like I had a great time. I liked the characters. I really enjoyed it. So 4 stars. Next, Bride by Ali Hazelwood, which is my first Ali Hazelwood book, which is a little bit rogue because I know she has so many romances and this is her first fantasy, and I just went, yep, sold. This is a book that like I read it and I had a great time. Now I'm like, what happened? The girl's a vampire. The vampires and werewolves have an alliance, and so she gets kind of like married to the head werewolf of this. Like, it sounds so stupid to describe. It's one of those things like someone's like, oh, what kind of reading do you do? And you're like, oh, just you know? So it just, it'll never sound as good. Basically, she has to marry a werewolf, even though she is a vampire, to kind of like keep the peace, but they kind of hate each other. And I just really enjoyed it. I think I really enjoy Ali Hazelwood's writing. I liked the tension between the two characters. I just had an all-round good time, honestly. At the time, I gave it 4.5. I might, maybe I just stick with that, but it's probably like more of a 4, maybe a 4.25 if I'm getting really specific. There's one part that involves something that if you read it, you know, I was like, what is going on? I just don't think, I know there's a whole book world to do with werewolves, which I'm the last person to judge if that's what works for you, as it should. I just don't think it's really for me. It was the like werewolf and vampire, you know, it was just a little bit, so I think I'll give it a 4 because everything else about it I really enjoyed. Next, we have the Invocations, which was another book club book. Horror. It's YA, so it's not like hectic horror, but I'm scared to say horror. I'm just trying to think of anything else that would kind of describe, like, not thriller, not mystery. I mean, kind of. It's about demons, and I feel like a lot of the things were very vividly described where I was like, oh my god, it almost felt a bit wrong to be reading about them because I was like, I shouldn't be reading this. And I cannot believe it's YA. I would be spooked if I read this when I was a teenager. But it's about these 3 girls. One's a witch, and then there's 2 girls that are kind of like humans, but one girl has like a demon attached to her, and it goes between the 3 perspectives of each girl, which I did really enjoy. I definitely overall enjoyed the writing and the pacing of the book and the characters and everything. I just don't think this is my kind of genre. 1 second, I need to go watch my vlog. Me not remembering anything I've rated ever. I think I probably rated it a 4. I gave it a 4. Okay, I gave it a 4. Thinking back to it, I really enjoyed, like, I kind of couldn't put it down, but then also I was like kind of feeling a bit icky reading it. I feel like I would definitely recommend trying this genre because I can see how people are really into it, and I did enjoy it, but I just don't think it's like my thing. Anyway, can I say it one more time? I'm just looking at my Goodreads and I've forgotten to get one book. The Naturals, yeah. The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, which is a YA mystery. It's basically about these group of kids that are really kind of, they've got natural talents, the naturals, in a bunch of different areas. So I think it's like the FBI, yeah, the FBI formed this group to help them out and like train them up so that one day they can kind of like help them discover things, work on their mysteries and stuff. And with any of the Jennifer Lynn Barnes books that I've read, this was such a quick read. It was such a page turner. The chapters are like 2 or 3 pages long, so you feel like you're flying through this. And I just feel like it was such an easy read. It is YA, so I feel like it's very just easy to understand. I feel like one thing though with her books, I enjoy them, but I never really care that much. Like, I enjoy them when I'm reading them, but then as soon as I put the book down, I don't think about it ever again. I definitely would like to continue the series because I think there's a few more books in the series, and the end of it really had me shocked. It's kind of like this whole mystery that we're trying to work out the whole time, and then this crazy kind of twist happens at the end, and I enjoyed it. It was just a quick, easy, fun kind of read. Okay, yeah, on Goodreads I've said 4.5 stars. That ending got me good, so I definitely very much enjoyed it. I'm very intrigued to continue reading the series. I want to know more about what was happening, and I feel like it's just going to keep getting more and more hectic. But yeah, I think the only reason it's probably not a 5 is just because I don't connect to the characters. I just like don't really care about them, which makes me not as interested, but I still had a great time. You and Me on Vacation by Emily Henry, one of my favorite authors. I love her writing so much, and it felt good. I hadn't read an Emily Henry book in a while, and it just felt so good to be back with her writing. It makes you feel things. I feel like that describes her writing so perfectly. When she's describing things, it makes you feel nostalgic for experiences that you've had in your life, if that makes sense. It's about this girl and this guy, and they've been friends for so long. They've spent like every single summer together. They always go on these summer trips for like 12 summers in a row. They always go on a summer trip. It's like a then and now perspective. So you start and they're not talking together. Whoa, what? Start of the book, they're not talking to each other. Poppy, the main girl, is wanting to kind of like rekindle their relationship, their friendship. There was never like any relationship there. They never wanted to ruin their friendship, so they always stayed friends. And so Poppy's kind of wanting to rekindle their friendship, so she organizes this trip. But it's been a couple years, I think, since they've seen each other, and so it's kind of a bit awkward. And then it goes back and forth between each summer, kind of leading up to the current day summer. And I loved it. I gave it a 4.5. Not my favorite Emily Henry book, but I had a great time. I just love her, and I love her writing. So next we have Powerful by Lauren Roberts, which is a novella to her first book, and the first book in the series, Powerless. I feel like I say the wrong one every single time. Powerless, I loved. I rated it 5 stars. It was one of my favorite books. So I was so excited to read this novella and just like have Lauren Roberts writing back, because I just love how she writes. It's like addictive. I love how she writes characters. This book is from the point of view of Adina, who is Hayden, the main character in Powerless's best friend. So it's about her, kind of like, it runs along the same timeline as Powerless. Why will that always be confusing? It's from the same timeline but from Adina's perspective, so you're kind of hearing little bits that are happening in Powerless but just from Adina's perspective, and there's a love interest, and it was a short fun read. It was like 240 pages. Adina is very like the opposite to Peyton, so it's just fun to just kind of like be back in this world. Wild Love by Elsie Silver, and I loved it. I couldn't put this book down. This is the first book in the new Rose Hill series. I feel like it's decently long for a romance. It's like, yeah, 450 pages, which I feel like, yeah, it's quite long for a romance, but I loved it. I love both main characters, small town romance. The guy's a billionaire, which I've never read billionaire romances before, and I think I'm kind of into it. I think I'm kind of into it. He's just moved back to his hometown and he's like starting up a new business, and then Rose, yeah, okay, I'm confused between Rose and Rosie. Rosie's just come back. She's been living in the city. She got fired from her job because her boss or someone in her workplace was awful to her, so she got fired, came home, and she was trying to like just work everything out. They've known each other for ages because Rosie's brother is Ford, the guy, and this is brother's best friend. Like sometimes when there's just like so many tropes and there's just so much going on in a book, it can get a bit much, but I think everything was done really well in this. I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. At first I was like 5 stars, and then I was like, is it a 5 star? I'm guessing myself, and I was like, Sophie, you had a good time, and that's what a 5 star is to me. I feel like everyone has different ratings of 5 stars, but if I've had a great time, if I'm thinking about it when I'm not reading it, if I can't put it down, I liked the characters, I liked the writing. I personally think this might be my favorite Elsie Silver book. I just think her writing was so good. I don't know what she's changed, but I really enjoyed it. Okay. Finally been opened up to the world. Shout out to Rach, because if you've seen when the girls and I went away for that little reading holiday, I asked both girls to pick me out a book, and Rach picked Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. This is my first Abby Jimenez book. I loved it. I think I've found one of my new favorite authors. This writing, the characters, I really just felt real. Like I felt like I was watching a movie the whole time when I was reading this. I folded down so many things, underlined so many sentences, because this man is like the most green flag of a man, like the most sweetest man you'll ever read, I swear. Set in a hospital, they're both doctors, and Jacob moves to Brianna's hospital. At first she thinks that he's going for her job, so she's like, hate you. Also he struggles with quite a bit of social anxiety, so his first impressions on her, she's like, he's so rude, he's trying to take my job. It's a dual perspective, so it goes between both of them, so you kind of hear what he's thinking in each moment. It's so beautiful. The things that he says to her, I loved the ending. I loved just everything about this book. If you've not read any Abby Jimenez books, I couldn't recommend more. This is also technically the second book in the standalone series. I'm pretty sure it's called Part of Your World series. The first one is Part of Your World, which I read after this, and I don't have the copy of because I just read it on my Kindle, and I rated that 5 stars as well. I finished this, came home, and then read it, and then read Just for the Summer, which is the third book, and this was potentially a 6-star book. I loved this book so much. It's definitely my favorite Abby Jimenez book that I've read so far, and I loved even more that the characters from Yours Truly, the characters from Part of Your World were all in this book, and I just love when they all come together. It just makes me so happy. I just think that Abby Jimenez could kind of write anything, and I would love it. Not that I've read all of her work, but from what I've read. I love that this book was a bit different in the storyline, because both of the characters have this curse. They both break up with people, and then the people that they've broken up with go on to find their soulmate. And so Justin, the guy, he writes a post on Reddit kind of saying this, that everyone that he's in a relationship with breaks up with him, or he breaks up with them, and then they go on to get married and like find their soulmate. And so Emma sees this and goes, oh my gosh, same. And so they kind of make this deal to both date each other for, I think it's like 3 months or something. They have to go on a certain amount of dates, kind of fake date, to try and break this curse, or like they can both be each other's breakup before they find the one. And I just loved it. I feel like it's different. The acts of service that this man does, incredible. I also read House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland, which is the same author from the Invocations. This was the book that G picked for me when we went on our reading holiday, and I loved this book. I definitely preferred it over the Invocations. It was also quite a short book as well. It's like under 300 pages, I think, so it was such a quick read. I think again this is classed as YA horror. These 3 sisters, they go missing when they were quite young, disappeared on the street, and then all of a sudden reappeared on the same street a month later, but they looked different. I think they came back with like different color hair. They looked a little bit different. They was kind of described at school as like the creepy sisters. Like there was just something about them that was just a little bit off ever since they'd come back from being missing. And then one of the sisters, who's like this famous model, she has a fashion brand, she goes missing, and so the 2 other sisters go looking for her, and then you just find out so much, and the end is crazy. Maybe I'll bump it up to 4.75, and the only reason it's not a 5 is because it's just parts of it were just that little bit too, like made me feel a little bit too uneasy, but I loved it. I was so hooked the whole time. Next I read Done and Dusted by Lila Sage, which is my first book from her. I really just picked this up because the cover was so cute, and I was like, I just need to read this. I think because I read this quite close to Wild Love, it felt so similar that I think it made me like it a little bit less. Like if I read this first, maybe I would have liked Wild Love slightly less, because it's kind of the same story. Like it's her best friend's brother, again, and it's a small town romance. She comes back home, and yeah, I think I read it like within the same month, so it was just very like, oh, I'm reading the exact same story. I still enjoyed it. I think I gave it a 3 or a 3.5 maybe. It says I've given it a 3.75. I think I'd maybe lower it to a 3 purely just because it was so similar to Wildlife. I wasn't like gripped as much, but maybe I would have been if I didn't read Wildlife first. The next book I read was The Idea of You by Robin Lee, purely because of the Anne Hathaway movie that came out. I really wanted to read this before I watched the, oh my gosh, I almost fell. Yeah, I really wanted to read this before I watched the movie, and this book was, this book wasn't my favorite book I've ever read. I'm just double checking. I gave it, I feel so bad. I gave it a 1 star. I just think that I'm not the target audience for this writer. It was just very much a Harry Styles fan fiction, and I thought I was gonna really be obsessed with that, but I more so was just kind of like eked out a little bit. I do think that the age gap, it's weird because like part of your world there was a bit of an age gap. This was a big age gap though. There was little things that were said in this, like the woman is the older one. She'll say things like, oh, you're reminding me of like a little boy. And I was just like, if this was roles reversed and a man was saying that about a woman, it would not be okay. And I just felt a bit icky about that. It was way too long, dragged so much. I feel like we got so much information that just like wasn't needed. And I just, it wasn't my book. That's all I have to say. I also didn't really love the movie. I'm honestly surprised I didn't DNF it because I was this close to multiple times, but I just like wanted to see. Also, the ending is different to the ending in the book. Well, in the movie. And the next book I read was The Crimson Moth, which was another book club book. This is my pick for our book club actually, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5. This was also recommended by one of you because I got a comment on one of my vlogs saying, if you love Powerless, you'll love this book. And I was like, I obviously have to read it because I loved Powerless. And I did love that similar kind of premise. Basically, Rune is the Crimson Moth. She's a witch, and witches are very much like not allowed. They're killed if they're discovered, and so all witches are like hiding. So yeah, she's a witch, and in order to find the witches that are being taken, she basically fake dates this witch hunter, which just happens to be her best friend's brother as well. But also this witch hunter is also trying to fake date Rune because he believes she is the Crimson Moth. And so basically the whole time he's trying to prove she is the Crimson Moth, and she is trying to find more information out from him about the witches that are being taken. And I just feel like that's such a fun storyline, and there's like a ball, and there's so many scenes I just really enjoyed. I loved the setting that it was written in. The writing was really easy to read. The world building was really easy to read, and I loved it, and I'm definitely excited for the next book. Enemies to Lovers doesn't get more high stakes than a witch and a witch hunter falling in love. Loved it. My camera's like almost about to die, so I'm gonna power through these next 3. Next book I read was The Rule Book, which if you watched my last video, I kind of talked a little bit more about this. I took it on holiday with me. I had a great time reading this book. It is a romance book. It's about this girl who is a sports agent, and then she basically becomes the agent of her ex-boyfriend. He's trying to like do things to make her quit. She's determined to kind of make her career in this industry, so she's really sticking it out with him. Okay, my camera ran out of battery, but I've just attached to a charger, so I hope that works. They woke up the next day after getting really drunk, married, and they posted it all over social media, and this guy's like, I was picturing Travis Kelce. That's his status in the NFL. So that's who I was picturing this whole time, and I loved it. And basically she's like freaking out because she's like, now I'm gonna lose my job, and I've worked so hard in this like male dominated industry to work my way up. And then Derek, the NFL player, is just gonna come off like scot-free. Is that a saying? Basically, he's just gonna look like, oh yeah, like you're the man for doing that, and she's gonna lose her career. So in order to not get fired, they come up with this scenario that they're actually in love, and then they got married spontaneously, but because they have been in love for so many years, so then they have to go on a honeymoon together. There'll be interviews and photographers and everything. There's like so much unsaid. But I had a great time. I feel like there was parts of it where I was a bit like, oh, it's a romance book, and I had a great time with it. Maybe 4.25 if I continue thinking about it. I only read it last week. Next, we're almost there. I've got 2 more books to talk about. I read This Summer Will Be Different, which again, if you saw my last week's vlog, I brought it on holiday with me, and I read it on holiday. I picked it up because I was like, this is surely gonna be the most perfect holiday read, and it was. I was literally reading it on an island, and they were on an island, and it just felt so perfect. It's a then and now perspective, which I do love. The book starts when the 2 main characters are like meeting each other 5 years ago. They have a night together, and then she comes to the realization that he is her best friend's brother. So once they realize this, they're like, okay, we have to pretend this never happened. You find out why later on in the book, but one of the best friend's rules to the friendship is that you can't fall in love with my brother. She still summers with her best friend every single summer at her best friend's family's house, and so obviously Felix, the guy, is there, and there's always this kind of like pull between them, but they're like, no, we can't. And the book basically starts 9 days until Bridget's wedding, which is her best friend. And I really enjoyed the kind of like countdown to the wedding. Basically, Bridget, the best friend, calls, what's her name? Why am I awful? Calls Lucy being like, can you come out to the island? I need you. And Lucy's like, it's 9 days out from your wedding, like what's going on? But okay, I'll be there. So she flies out, but then obviously Felix is there. There were so many beautiful lines. This one though, she says, I wish I was like you. And then he says, we've already got one of me. We need you to be exactly like you. and I'm giving it 5 because I had a great time. I did say at one point that it feels very familiar, and then I was talking to Rach a few days after because we both read this book, and she was like, why did it low-key give Happy Place? And I was like, I knew that it somewhat felt familiar. Maybe that's why I liked it, and maybe should not get a 5 because it kind of reminded me of that, like because it's kind of like a similar storyline. Maybe it's because it's been so long since I read Happy Place, it didn't bother me. Like if I read it straight after, I'd probably been like, this is so similar. But I loved the kind of more emotional depth and like character development that I feel like both characters went through, specifically the girl. But I'm excited to read more of Carly Fortune's writing because I really had a great time and this was the perfect holiday read. If you've gotten up to this point, thank you, because I know I've just talked and talked and talked, but I had 20 books to get through. I literally finished this one this morning. This is Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. This is my second Ali Hazelwood book and my first romance from her. This book started off and I was like, oh my gosh, am I about to have another 5-star read? Like I am loving it so much. Then, which I didn't realize, apparently it's like even written in the disclaimer. Not in Love is tonally a little different from the works I've published in the past. Rue and Eli have dealt with and still deal with the fallout from issues such as grief, food insecurity, and child neglect. They are eager to make connection but are not sure how to go about it except through a physical relationship. The result is, I think, less of a rom-com and more of an erotic romance. I didn't read this before starting this book, so I was like, what? But I really just flipped straight to chapter 1 and started from there. So I think going into that would have made me, like, would have just like set my expectations probably more in the right place. In saying that though, I did really enjoy it, and I think it means that I just really enjoy Ali Hazelwood's writing because I loved the characters. The guy Eli, I really enjoyed him. Kind of like a bit of a workplace scenario because Rue, the girl, works for a company. Eli's company basically tries to take over it, the company that Rue works for, and one of her best friends is the boss of that company or is the CEO of that company. And so she's very much like, oh my gosh, like you're trying to take not only the company that I work for, but also my best friend's life's work and business and everything. But the book starts because they meet from like meeting on an app and they were just gonna like have a night together and then goodbye because Rue's very much like, that's all I need, I don't want a relationship kind of thing. They don't end up sleeping together that night, but then the next day she rocks up to work and then he's there. So then she's like, I don't want to have anything to do with you because you're a bad person. I think I've landed on a 4-star. I did finish it this morning, so maybe that will change, but I'm pretty sure I'm laying on a 4-star. I really enjoyed a lot of the storyline. I think if I was going in with it knowing that it was an erotica, I would have probably felt different. But at first I was like, oh my gosh, like what is actually going on? I feel like that lowered it a little bit for me, and maybe if it wasn't like that I would have rated it a bit higher because I really enjoyed the characters, the kind of background that both characters had, how they related to each other, and the little things that they do. It's mostly just made me realize that I need to read more Ali Hazelwood books because I don't think many of her books are this spicy. Those are the last 20 books that I read. I hope you enjoyed just hearing me talk about books, and I hope maybe you got a few book recommendations from this. I really hope you enjoyed this little extra upload for the week. I would love any book recommendations always. This is my physical TBR shelf, so I do have a few books to get through, but I would love any books that you have read that you love, maybe that were 5 stars for you. Please let me know because I always want more recommendations. Anyway, I'm gonna stop talking now. Wow. See you next week.